an algebra practice worksheet. And I tried to make it so the red is really the geometry behind the problem, and then the blue is the algebra. So when you look at a picture like this, and I have, this angle is 2 plus 4x, and this angle is 5x minus 9, you really want to think, okay, how are those angles related? And it turns out those angles are vertical angles. We know vertical angles are congruent, which means the measure of the angles are equal. So my advice, set them equal to each other, since we know they're equal, because we know vertical angles are equal, and those are vertical angles. So then I just set 2 plus 4x equal to 5x minus 9. I added 9 over here to make 11, and I subtracted 4x over there to make 1x. And you get 1x equals 11. That was the whole point. Solve for x. Now, if I wanted to solve for the angles, I could put x back in, and I could do 2 plus 4 times 11. 4 times 11 is 44. 44 plus 2 is 46. So this angle is 46. And you could try it over here. 5 times 11 is 55. 55 minus 9 is 46. You're like, oh, look at that. They're both 46. Well, they have to be. We know vertical angles are congruent. So I would encourage you to think, when you look at a picture, think about how are the givens related. In this instance, they're vertical, so set them equal. Now over here on number 2, how is this angle, right? How is that angle related to that angle? Well, those two angles form a line. We call those linear pairs. We know that linear pairs are supplements, which means their sum is 180 degrees. So instead of them setting equal to each other, now I can do the first angle plus the second angle equals 180. And then I just did algebra after that. 5x plus 4x is 9x. 4 plus 5 is 9. I subtracted 9 from both sides. And then I took 171 and divided by 9 and got 19. Again, if you wanted to check your answers, you could plug 19 in here and 19 in here and actually find the angles and confirm that they add up to 180. All right, you look at this, you're like, all right, I have two givens. What do I know about the relationship? Well, the red says linear pairs are supplements. We know that the sum is 180, which is why in this case, to get it started, I took this angle plus this angle equals 180, and then I solved. I added the 5 and then 119 to get 124. I subtracted 124 to the right side to get 56, and then I divided by 4 to get 14. Looking at number 4, how are these related? These are vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent, so set them equal to each other. 5x plus 8 equals 43, and then solve. So, this whole sheet, the red is like the Y. It's the background. The blue, well, its first part of the blue comes from, well, what are they? Well, they're congruent angles. They're vertical. So set them equal, and then the rest is just, little algebra steps. Look at 5. 5 again. 5 is a linear pair. Linear pairs are straight lines. They make 180 degrees. So add them up and set them equal to 180. And then when I'm actually doing the algebra, I'm just combining like terms. I'm taking 8x and 2x and getting 10x. I'm taking 4 with the 26 and getting 30. And then I'm going to subtract 30 to the other side to get 150. And I'll divide by 10 to get 15. 6, these are vertical, so set them equal, and then solve. I added 3 to the left side to get 14. I subtracted 7x to the right side to get only 2x, and then I divided by 2. This one. So this was the given here, right? You knew that was 110, but you know that this has to be 110 because those are vertical. But if that's 110, well, that has to be a linear pair, so that's got to be 70, but then that has to be 70. You can see that when you have two lines intersect, you're always going to form multiple linear pairs and then two sets of vertical angles. Now, this right here and this right here, that tells me that the lines are parallel. If the lines are parallel, then what we know is that corresponding angles are congruent, alternate exterior angles are congruent, alternate interior angles are congruent, and consecutive interior angles are supplements. So once you know this setup, you know the exact same setup must exist on the other one. Again, this line here that I just tried to highlight, that's the transversal. Anytime the transversal cuts through parallel lines, it forms a group of 8 angles. 4 here and an identical 4 up top. Same thing here. Once you know this is 47, the rest of it is kind of just self-explanatory. 47, linear pair to make 133, linear pair to make 47, linear pair to make 133, vertical angles are congruent, vertical angles are congruent, and an identical 4 on the top as long as the lines are parallel. All right, so now we're going to use some of this stuff. So when you look at this, you're like, all right, the lines are parallel. What do we know? Well, this angle and this angle, those are corresponding. Corresponding angles are congruent if the lines are parallel. So if they're congruent, set them equal. 75 equals 11x minus 2. Add 2 to get 77. Divide by 11. Looking over here at number 11. Well, look at those two. Those are consecutive interiors. We know consecutive interiors are supplements, which means you add them up, they get 180. So this one plus this one equals 180. Add them up, subtract 192, divide by 2. Look at number 12. If the lines are parallel, what do we know? Well, we know alternate exteriors are congruent. So set them equal. Top one equals bottom one, right? Top left and bottom right. Those are alternate exterior. And then we solve. What do we know about these two? These are corresponding angles. This is like in the bottom right, and this one's also in the bottom right. Well, bottom right and bottom right are called corresponding. They're in the same location. And if the lines are parallel, which they are, then we know corresponding angles are congruent. Set them equal and solve. Right? Subtract 21x over to here to get only 2 x's. Add 5 over there to get 10. Divide by 2. Here we have consecutive interiors. What do we know? We know they're supplements. We know they have a sum of 180. So I took this one plus this one equals 180. Number 15. These are alternate interiors. Alternate interiors are congruent as long as the lines are parallel. So I set them equal to each other. Remember, anytime we know two angles are congruent, set them equal. If we know two angles are a linear pair or two angles are consecutive interiors, then we know they're supplements. So add them up equal to 180. Really got to think through the different cases. If parallel, what do we know about corresponding? Well, that guy and that guy are corresponding. Set them equal. This guy and this guy, those are consecutive interiors. We know those are supplements. So add them up, set them equal to 180, and solve. So you pretty much have the 4 different types on a transversal. You have consecutive interior, corresponding, alternate interior, and then somewhere over here we had alternate exterior. Those are the 4 types. 3 of them are congruent. 1 of them is supplements. When we go up here, then we start talking about linear pairs and vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent, set them equal. Linear pairs form 180 degrees, so take the first angle plus the second angle, and that's got to equal 180.